All right, now that we've got both frame halves into the skin, now we'll start assembling the center of the boat here. We're going to go ahead and get the air sponson tube up through the slot in the gunnels. Same thing on both sides, just like that. Okay, then we have our last two rods that we're going to put in. Basically just slide the ferrules together. Same thing on this side, just like that. Now we're going to go ahead and engage the center keel lock. Keep the gunnels out from underneath the keel, and simply just push down on the keel. All right, then we're going to engage the gunnel locks. Okay, just a reminder, whenever you're engaging these locks, always make sure that you know your hand is up here and out of the way and you're not sticking your fingers underneath these locks. And you always want to make sure that when you engage the gunnel locks that the two gunnels are completely butted up together with each other. If you meet any resistance on those gunnels, stop and just realign it and make sure that those gunnels are square, the ends are squared up with one another. And they'll just lock in place very easily, just like that. It's always best to assemble the boat on flat ground, because if you get any kind of concave or convex ground going on, then you'll have a little bit more difficulty engaging these center locks. And again, anytime you meet any kind of resistance with that lock, stop and realign. We're going to go ahead and connect the rods in the center of the boat now. So the sliding sleeve slides over the other rod. And I'll do that same thing on this side. And one other minor detail, always make sure that the screw in the sliding sleeve is always pointing up and never down into the rubber. On the installation of the last three ribs, you always want to install rib number 4 last. So it doesn't matter if you put 3 or 5 in first, just put rib number 4 in last. And there's a technique to this. I always like to just grab the rib like this, right here. Again, we're going to have our number facing the number. And again, the number always faces towards the center lock in the keel. So I'm going to grab this rib like this, and I like to put my elbow onto the gunnel over here. And on this gunnel over here, what I'm doing is I'm spreading the gunnels apart, so then that rib just drops nicely into the gunnels. Then just go ahead and engage that lock and pin it in place. Snap the rod onto the rod holder. Same thing over here. I'm going to engage the rib lock to the gunnel and lock it in place. And lock the rod onto the rod holder. Next, we'll put in rib number 3. I'm spreading the gunnels with my elbow and my hand. I'm dropping that rib in place, just like that. Engaging the lock here, engaging the lock on the other side, and clipping the rods into the rod holders. The last rib, number 4, with the foot control pedals. Holding that rib like this, same thing. I'm spreading them gunnels out a little tiny bit. Engage the rib into the keel. Engage the rib and gunnel locks and pin it in place. Just like that. And lock the rods to the rod holders. All right, the next piece that we're going to put on is the coaming. And on the coaming, on the bottom of the mast bracket, you've got a T-fitting here. So when we install this T-fitting, we're going to drop the T-fitting down through the grommet in the deck and the rectangular slot in the deck bar fitting. And so this coaming is going to go on at a right angle to the boat. So now I'm going to drop that T-fitting down through the grommet and the fitting, and I'm going to turn it around, and if it's locked in place, it's not coming off. We have T-fittings on the coaming. The T-fitting goes through the grommet. We're going to open up the lock, and the T-fitting drops down into the top of the lock, and you pivot the lock shut. And then you have a locking pin that you will put through the lock, just like that. Same thing over here. We're going to put the T-fitting through the grommet, open up the lock, the T-fitting drops into the top of the lock, and we shut the lock and put the pin through it. Same thing on rib number 4, T-fitting through the grommet into the top of the lock, shut the lock, and pin it. And same thing on this side. Just like that. Then we're going to install the rear left and right coaming pieces, and they basically just slide together at the center of the coaming here. And this little screw right here is going to basically fall into the hole that is on the stainless steel coaming bracket. So we're just going to slide this together just like that, and it's in place. Same thing here. We're going to put the T-fitting through the grommet, open up the lock, slides in at the top, and shut the lock and pin it in place. So now we're just simply, same thing on this side, just slide the two pieces together so the screw lines up into the hole in the fitting. We're going to put the T-fitting through the grommet, drop the T-fitting into the top of the lock, and shut the lock and pin it in place. Okay, now we're going to tuck in the deck rubber flaps into the coaming, and I've got a little rubber flap right up here at the front of the coaming that I'm just going to push forward. That just kind of raises up this deck underneath here, makes it a little bit more water resistive. And now I'm just going to go ahead and start tucking in the rubber flap into the coaming. Very simple. That's done. Your rear boomerang piece has your HIN number or your hull identification number on it. All right, installation of the rear boomerang piece. You've got the 4 screws on the inside of the boomerang, and they are going to simply just hook through the grommets on the rubber stern piece. Now we're going to engage the fitting on the end of the coaming to the fitting on the rib. So it looks like that right there. Basically what we want to do here is we want to drop the screw here down into the cutout in the fitting on the end of the coaming. Then same thing over here, we're going to engage the fittings just like that, and drop the coaming, the boomerang down into the metal fitting.